these kids move fast, and when we're talking about a toddler, things happen quickly. So
Yeah.
everything that you've talked about sometimes can go out the drain,
That's
and
right.
you find yourself doing exactly what you said you didn't want to do.
Right.
Well, hello, StemToRoots. This is your host, Mike Demba. This is where we plan on talking our way into a plan. As you guys can see, I have this big smile because I have two wonderful ladies, my sisters, people that I've known and loved for a long time. And today's conversation is going to be fun. Okay, I have two mothers here because our conversation today is themed motherhood and the professional life here in the States. And I'm gonna have them introduce themselves. And as we talk here today, they will tell us more about themselves, and you guys will get to know them and why I'm smiling already. All right, I'll start with you, Nai. Please tell my people who you are and professionally what you do, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chenai Majo Kabete. I am originally from Zimbabwe, and professionally, I am a recruiter. So at the moment, I recruit for bank tellers, also along with managers, but I've recruited for doctors, nurses, radiologists, warehouse techs. Also, I have been in Toyota sales before. So I've pretty much recruited for a wide range of positions, but at the moment, I am a bank teller recruiter.
Is there an HR aspect to what you do?
Yes, it is. It is an HR. And I'm a recruiter now, but I started my career from the bottom up. I started as an assistant. I worked myself up to be a generalist, those people that fire people, to investigations, any issues that you have in the company. That was me, to benefits, leaves. So I've pretty much done every single aspect of HR, but recruiting definitely has to be my favorite for sure.
Professional woman. Elsa, tell my people who you are, what you do, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elsa Gomez Banjaki. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. What do I do? I am an IT professional. My current role is an IT project manager. I, like Chenai, started from the bottom. Started off with customer service, with help desk, kind of worked my way up to last year got my cybersecurity cert. So I did, cybersecurity for a little bit. And so I just kind of pivoted into management as a project manager. And so I currently work for a private neurosurgery company here in Charlotte. So we have about 10 locations. So as you can imagine, projects with healthcare and different applications, it's pretty busy. So I kind of run all of that and make sure every project comes through IT, because IT is always needed, right? So
always needed everywhere,
yes,
every industry, every company, government, churches, everywhere.
Yes.
But today's conversation here on StemToRoots, as we know, here it's about conversations that have something to do with us in the diaspora from the continent of Africa. And I liked that we started with what you guys do professionally. But today's focus, I want to talk about the fact that, out of all those accomplishments, you professional women, the most important one is the fact that you're mothers. All right. So I thought about this for a while, and I wanted more than one mother to come, because when it comes to parenthood, one size doesn't fit all, right? So I wanted to share the experience of two women, that have a similar background, just professionals here, right? But have kids. One comes from West Africa, the other one from Southern Africa. I wanted to represent as much as possible the continent. So that's what I want to talk about today. And I want to start with you, Nai. Right. You came here to this country when? We want to touch a little bit on, your upbringing back home and when you came here, what age and all that.
I came here when I was 6 years old.
6?
Yes.
You were a baby. Okay. So you came here at age 6, and you went through, basically your upbringing has been here.
So I started with first grade all the way up to college.
But you're somebody that is fully connected with back home. Not only do you have family members there, obviously, but your parents, of which one passed away, your dad, rest in peace. They raised you here, with African roots, an African background, with your upbringing being fully connected to back home. And sometimes that you can tell from the language, something you came here at age 6 and you speak your local language. Shona, is it
Yes, yes.
clean as anybody at home? And that says a lot about your upbringing. And now you have a baby.
Yes.
Your baby boy is how old?
Congratulations.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. He is 2.5.
2.5, married to
A Zimbabwean.
a Zimbabwean. That's what I wanted to clarify, because that's important to the upbringing of that baby.
Yes.
All right. So giving people that background. Elsa, tell us about yours. When did you come here? Married to who? How many kids? Give us that background, please.
I moved to the U.S. right out of high school. I think I was 18. I was about to turn 19. So I've been here a little over 21 years. So, college life, adult life has been the U.S. I tell people all the time, I said, I grew up here because
Yep.
my adult life, my first bank account, my first all of that adulthood was here, right? So at 18, from childhood to 18, mom, dad does everything, buys your clothes, do all of that. So here's when I learned to balance my first checkbook, like my first bank account, all that fun stuff. So I feel like my adult life has been here. And I've learned a lot. So I'm married to an amazing guy. That's just me, but and we have 3 kids. A girl who's 12, and then we've got a 10-year-old who's your godson, and then I've got a 6-year-old. So that's me.
So, and the reason why I wanted, our listeners to know that is, you're a Gambian, married to a Gambian. You have a Gambian husband, 3 kids you're raising here in Charlotte, here in the U.S. All of them born here. They're being raised here. The oldest one, 12. Chenai, from Zimbabwe, came here early. Came here as a baby. 6 is a baby. Right. But married to a Zimbabwean who came here later, also after high school, actually after A levels, and we had him here as a guest. Came here later, but came here with parents that were still that connected, that rooted back home, and I wanted that little difference that's there. Subtle difference, but that's what will bring a lot of perspective here. Nai, so here you are with a 2.5-year-old boy. How has your experience been raising a boy, that is born here in America, and most of your life, if not all of it, you've been raised here in America with African parents. Tell me about that dynamic. I'm interested in knowing whether there's any kind of like mix there that stands out.
Very much so, because you can only do what you know, but yet what you know you don't really agree with, right? So parenting does not come with a manual. So sometimes I find myself being my mother, and then sometimes I catch myself, I'm like, no, that's not what I want, So it's learning and then undoing the things that you've learned. So a lot of times I started off parenting being my mom because that's what I know. I know to my mom and yell and say, don't do this. And every second, just spank them on the butt. And, then you're like, wait, no. That's not what I wanted to do. So it's a learning process. I mean, of course, it's still early. I mean, it's been 2.5 years, but
yes,
I have to say I'm still trying to find my groove for sure. Between being an American, but
yes,
Zimbabwean mom raising an American and Zimbabwean kid that you still want to be in their culture. So it's really tricky.
Yes. Elsa, for your story, up until, lately, but, for when your kids were 2.5 years old, it was you and your husband, and not having it, because the difference there between you and Chenai is Chenai did have the mom around, right?
Yeah.
The influence is the same because your upbringing, your wired is rooted in you, so all of that will come out, right? But for you were doing this alone, I'll say.
Yeah.
Tell us about your experience.
So I want to add to what Chenai says, is because that's very important. When I look at myself, my son, my 10-year-old, had some behavioral issues at first because when he was
Mhm.
before he got into kindergarten, it was mostly home. I worked third shift, so I'm able to keep him home, save on childcare, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
he didn't really interact with other kids outside of his sister.
Right.
So he went into, elementary school and had a few behavioral issues of, didn't learn to share and, touchy hands a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
But I remember vividly is that again, the spanking thing. I would pop him and spank him. I mean,
Yeah.
up until maybe a couple years ago, to be honest, we
Yeah.
still do that. By the way, we still spank, not as much, but we now use words. But
Yeah.
it was funny because I spanked him. I went to work and I was talking to my colleagues who, as an IT woman, I'm a unicorn, the only woman and the only black person in a full, IT staff.
Mhm.
We're talking and then I was like, yeah, how was your weekend? I was like, oh, my son got me so mad. He did this thing and then I popped him and he was like so scared. And my colleague, as I'm telling him, his eyes were like, you did what? Like I was looked at as this bad. He was like, you spanked him and then he had this reaction. Like we went into this whole, psychology therapy session. And then it pulled me back a little bit. And I had
Yeah.
to look at how we, like my mom or, Africans, we just pop. We don't listen. We just
Yes. Yeah.
beat first,
Yes.
and then we'll talk later, right?
That's
So
if we
after
end up
That's
talking.
if
Yeah.
yeah,
we get a chance to
yeah,
talk.
if we end up exactly. So after that, and like I said, this was maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I stopped, but so every time I'm like, okay, how do I want to balance this African upbringing
Mhm.
and raising these kids in the U.S. who,
Mhm.
like I feel like we didn't have this emotional. We like growing up Africans.
Yes.
They don't care about how we emotionally feel, right?
Mm.
So
Mm.
now I'm dealing with kids like my son. Your godson. He's very emotional. Wears his emotions on his shoulders. If he's upset,
Mm.
he tells you.
Mm.
So that really
Mm.
pulled me back a little bit. So now I'm trying to balance these two Elsas per se, right?
Yes.
Being an
Yes.
African mom and then
Yes.
raising these American kids, if you want to call them that.
Yes.
But yeah, so back to your question, my mom just got here. She's only been here for 3 months. But when
Yes.
we first started, and I said my oldest is 12. So for 12 years, it's just been
Yes.
me and my husband, right? So
Yes.
it's the child care. It's the hey, who's picking up, who's dropping off, what are we doing? Like
Mm.
it's a whole schedule and trying to figure out, what that means for us as a family
Yeah.
and how do we help these kids that we have now had in the US and trying to get them with this, this
Right.
African culture of things. So
Right.
it was tough, but I think now we're coasting, right? Because they're a little older. So yeah, it's
And that we is where I want to pick up from, right?
right.
Two of you married to a Zimbabwean and a Gambian, who also have that same background as you, raised at home, and now you have kids, right? And I caught where the two of you were both talking about, how your upbringing and your wiring actually comes to manifest itself when you guys are like by default, like whether it's disciplining the kid or straightening them, right? That comes off because that's just your wiring.
Right.
And you happen to have a husband that has that same kind of background. So when you're ready to switch, right? And your husband is still not switching, if that's ever a scenario, like what's the conversation like, with a partner, because it's the two of you raising the kids, that has not arrived where you are, if there's a switch there that you're pursuing, like how do you treat a conversation like that, or how do you deal with it in a scenario like that? Can I go first?
Okay.
I think it's having that conversation, like, let's talk about how we want to discipline our kids. And it's unfortunate because a conversation can be had, but of course we're all parents here, and we know that sometimes these kids move fast, and when we're talking about a toddler, things happen quickly. So everything that you've talked about sometimes can go out the drain.
That's
And
right.
you find yourself doing exactly what you said you didn't want to do.
Right.
So I think it needs to be And I'm not going to talk about what I do because we talk about it, but like I said,
Yes.
I think it just needs to be a constant conversation
Mm, mm,
in my head, or
I like
teach
that.
yourself to take a second before you react. And again, it's hard because these kids move quickly, so sometimes it doesn't let you take a second because you need to react immediately. But
Instant. Yeah.
I think it's just constantly having that conversation to talk to each other and say, how do we want to discipline these children?
I like that. So bringing up the conversation away from where, something is hot and happening. Just, when in your downtime, maybe baby is sleeping, maybe you're having dinner, being on the same page as far as like how you want to approach either something that has happened and you want to talk about it, or how you just want to pursue the kid's life in general. Asa, tell us about yours. Like how have you been dealing with this with my big bro?
So mine is a little different. It's like I feel like it's two ends of the spectrum because my husband is a truck driver. He travels a lot. He drives and he travels a lot. So he is barely home. When he's home, it's a day or two of resting, and then
Boom, hits the road.
and then he hits the road. So the difference I think with Chenai and I is that we do this calendar thing. We've all seen the movies where the mom is putting stuff on the dad's calendar or the refrigerator has a calendar. That's me because he's not here. So when I'm planning doctor's appointments, hey, are you going to be here Thursday? Yes, boom. Emma has an appointment at 12. I book it, I set it, send it to his calendar. So we do this calendar share that we do, and we have one on the refrigerator. And mostly it's because I'm mostly home. Yes, I'm a working mom.
Yes.
Got a 9 to 5, so get the kids to school and head to work. But when I'm home, I'm 100%, just like Chenai, we're 100% mom, right?
Yes.
So when I'm home with the pickup, drop off, with activities and stuff, but when he's home, there's certain things that that we have expectations for.
Right.
So a lot of times we're doing sharing stuff. So I must say the disciplinarian is me. I'm the one that's mostly in the trenches, always, every day, all day. But we do have conversations. So when he's home, like, hey, this is what your son did today. Or it will happen. And for me not to forget, I'll send him a text and say, let's talk about,
that's brilliant.
The kid and what happened at school today. So he can remind me, right? We try to have those conversations, but I'm going to be honest, it doesn't always, happen the way that I want to.
Yeah.
And a lot of times what he does, because he's always gone, he's the good cop and the bad cop. So when he comes home, he's home with gifts and babying everyone, and everyone know daddy. So he never says no. So I end up looking, like the bad cop. And so trying to balance that, right?
Yes.
It's hard. Yes. It's because I'm like, dude, we're a team. So if I say no while you're gone, when you come, these kids manipulate you. They say, daddy, can we do this? And he doesn't think, did they have the conversation with mom already, right?
Yeah.
So we're doing a lot of that.
Yeah.
It's parenting as a team, but it's like calendars and let's talk and, talk to me before you do this or before you say yes to this. And so it's a balancing act.
It is a balancing act, and it's interesting how you just laid this out, where something that keeps coming up, like in my mind as you guys are talking about this, is that importance of communication and being on the same page and knowing, and being aligned as far as like how you want to treat the kids, raise them, and in your case, Elsa, accepting that for what we want for our kids, I have to embrace this bad cop image, properly, not only because I'm spending more time with them, but if all of us, go to the good cop side, something huge will be missing.
That's right.
This is interesting, and this is why I wanted to have this conversation with you guys. I want to, just because Nai, you came here at age 6, right? I want to start asking you this, like, I want to know whether having your baby here, 20 years old, you've been here most of your life, all of it, because I'm not counting the first 6 years. First 6 years, maybe you forgot about the first 3. So your life here, what America is all about. And in our circles, we talk about how we want to make sure our kids know their roots and they're as connected in knowing where they're from. And hugely, when people speak, they put a huge importance on that, right? Is that overrated?
Not at all.
Tell me more.
Not at all. So for me, I grew up as much. Of course, I grew up here. You guys know that, but my parents always had to talk with us that remember where you come from. You're not from here. That was a constant talk in my house, and also you're not. What we do in this home is
Yes.
not what we're not going to mimic what other people do outside.
Absolutely.
You are Zimbabwean kids,
Yep.
yes, who live in America, but you're not
That's
American.
right. Yep.
Yeah. So that was a thing for us. And also to be a little more transparent is that for the first couple of years when we came to America, we didn't have any papers. So you couldn't act like everybody else.
Right.
You couldn't have the freedom. Even so at that point, like I mean, I hate to say that I was a little timid at first, but you can't be that kid that's going to be acting out in class because you don't know what not having papers really means. I mean, of course, you're going to go back to your country, but you don't know what, at 6, you don't know what's going to send you back to your country, right?
Right.
So my parents always taught us we're not the same. And then the one thing my parents did that was very well is that we used to go to a church with other Zimbabweans. We used to go to every summer our vacation. And African parents' vacation is not the best, but we used to go to a Zim camp.
Zim camp.
Zimbabwean church camp for a week.
Love it.
So there, you're meeting with other Zimbabweans, so they're speaking our language. You have other friends that speak your language. So they made sure. So growing up, most of my life, I went to high school with other people, but I always gravitated to the Zimbabweans because my life is centered around my culture. I go home. I call my Zimbabwean friend from other states that I see every summer. So I think my parents did such a great job by reminding us that you're not one of them.
Right.
You are Zimbabwean. You are where you came from.
Have you experienced benefits from that? What are the benefits of that?
That I think you have a more head on your shoulders. I mean, I hate to talk about my friends that I went to high school with, but I'm one of the few that stayed on a path, and of course, being African, you're curious. You came from Zimbabwe. There's some things that you do, but at the same time, you might go off track, but you're still in the lane. Like you remind yourself. Yes, you remind yourself to come back. So I think those are definitely the benefits, knowing that like this is a privilege. I know that I have no rights here. My parents brought me. They say they brought me here for a better opportunity. So remember to always come back stay on track. Yeah.
If anybody knows you, your husband and your family, you have a lot of love for home. Your mom just got here 3 months ago, meaning, your parents were all back home, meaning as far as your connection to home is not like a monthly, yearly thing, it's a daily thing. Correct. So same question. Is this need to have our kids also that rooted back home overrated? Are we putting way too much emphasis on it?
It's not. And like Nai said, it's not overrated. And that's because, one, for me, I come from an education background. My mom was a teacher for 40 years. She's an educator. My dad did a little bit in his early career, but, it's education for African parents, like Nai would know and understand, it's big, right? So it's like this need of reminding ourselves that we know where we come from. Remember where you come from, right? Because that gives you that's where you're rooted. StemToRoots, you are rooted, right? So from my head to my toe, I am African before I'm anything else, right? So I always had to remember that because, no matter what life threw at us, no matter what, jokes I heard in college, no matter what, terms I've been called, I always remember that, look, my parents are back home. The opportunity, the honor, the blessing of being here to accept and adapt this new culture and this new life of opportunities, right? The white picket fence and all these opportunities that we have that America offers, to take advantage of it. Because at the end of the day, when I look at, friends, colleagues, I go home and we take the kids home, at least every 2 years, because that's important, not knowing where I'm from, but giving them that as well, so they know where mom and dad and auntie and uncles are from, right? And where they're from. It's funny because just last night I have a colleague who picks up, we do this carpool thing. So she picks up the kids when I'm working a little late, and I do the same for her. And she stopped over and we were talking to my 12-year-old who's in middle school. And middle school in the US is when, especially for a girl, and now with technology, it's tough. So we were just talking to her, and then she started crying. And I'm like, what's going on? And it's like, she had this thing in her, which my daughter never does, but she was questioning if she's pretty enough, right? And she'll joke with her brother about colorism. They call each other monkey, and you're dark and you're that. So these are things that I'm trying to get them out of, to get them to
Mm.
appreciate their melanin, their color,
Mm.
how beautiful you are. Just
Mm.
because this is lighter, and I mean, there are different shades of us, right? Different types of us. So forget the black and white. I feel like racism and colorism.
Yes.
The African colorism and the culture is what I've been dealing with, and having to figure out how to
Mm.
get the kids. So taking them home and understanding where I'm from has
Yes.
given me the opportunity and the knowledge to say, hey, there's dark skinned, light skinned, all these shades, but you're beautiful, right? And understand where you're from. Your skin is this color because of
Mm.
where you're
Mm.
from.
Wow.
Appreciate that, your ancestors. So we do a lot of that. So it's not underrated, it's not overrated, it's just where it's supposed to. And I feel like we should have more discussions
Mm.
with our kids, right? Because that way they're able to, I'm not gonna say call it a level-headed, but they're
Mhm.
able to kind of balance this thing of school and life when they go out there, right? Because we didn't have that. We grew up in all Africa, like at least I did. So everyone was the same.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
wasn't as out there as it is
Yeah.
now, raising a middle schooler, and a girl at that, right? And you know how girls are, Chenai. And
Mm.
are we pretty enough? She got curly hair. I want my hair like that. Stuff like that. So it's been an experience.
That's a perfect. Actually, that right there is a perfect segue to where I want to go in that next segment. Right, I want to take this little break. Here we have a tradition. This is STEM to Roots, where in our hunger for knowledge, this is where I pause to say, "Tell me something you think I don't know." All right. Just that, unfortunately for you guys today, two people are sitting here, and you have to capture both of us. All right.
Okay.
Now, tell Elsa and I something you think we don't know.
So Mike, my
Anything.
fish. And did you know that a shrimp's brain is in their heart is in their head?
I didn't know that.
We have been eating the shrimp.
I've been eating a lot of hearts. So a shrimp's heart is in the head.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So the heart beats from the head.
Yes.
Wow.
Where the hell is the brain?
Don't have one.
Clearly.
That's why they're bottom feeders. They don't have one.
Whoa, that's a good one. That's a good one. Us,
This is a good
your
one.
turn. That's a good one. Tell us something you think we don't know.